Hi, this is Ryan Bush. I'm really happy to be able to finally let you guys know about my latest book, From Wandering to Illumination, which has been a long time coming because I've been working on the photograph since 2014. I think of this book as my magnum opus, the strongest contribution I can make as an artist, not just in terms of the photographs themselves, but also as a statement about what's missing in the world today and what we can do about it. This book weaves together my mandala-like photographs of trees using a three-dimensional multiple exposure technique I invented, along with a tradition from ancient Greece called the Eleusinian Mysteries, as well as my own personal journey to connect more deeply with consciousness and the sacred. I'll say more about these various themes as I go through the book, so let's just dive right in. But first, I want to mention that the book is available for sale on Amazon, and I'll include a link at the end of the video. As I start to go through the book, you'll notice that the book comes with a pair of 3D glasses, so you can see the works in 3D. But if anybody happens to have a pair of 3D glasses at home, they'll be able to see these photographs in 3D on the video, as well as in the photographs on my website, ryanbushphotography.com. As I flip through the first part of the book, you'll notice that there is a preface and a foreword, and I'm very grateful to Franz Stina, who wrote the beautiful foreword. He's the author of various Reiki books, including The Inner Heart of Reiki and Reiki Insight. And as I go through the introduction, I'll just mention a little about the context behind these photographs and what it means to me. Our world is lost in wandering, as we all know from the many threats to human rights, the environment, democracy, and common human decency. Because of all the chaos and conflict, people are becoming more prone to anxiety, depression, exhaustion, violence, stress-related illnesses, or just becoming numb. Quite simply, our current way of approaching things is not working. However, when things are beyond our current abilities, that can be a powerful catalyst forcing us to evolve. Just as our ancient ancestors had to adapt to changing conditions and evolve to become Homo sapiens, the supposedly wise humans, now we need to take the next step in our evolution and become what we could call Homo vigilans, or awakened humans. Many people are turned off from traditional religions, government, and other institutions that used to unify us, so it falls to the rest of us to point the way, to those of us who believe in love, compassion, harmony, and illumination. Fortunately, art can be just as effective a path of awakening as any other wisdom tradition, since it provides powerful opportunities to go beyond our ordinary mind and connect through the imagination and the space beyond words. Just as Picasso used his Guernica painting to call attention to the atrocities of war, I created this series of three-dimensional photographs to call attention to the most important things that I can think of, our ordinary state of wandering and the radiant state of illumination. In this book, I use the Eleusinian Mysteries from ancient Greece as a way of talking about the journey from wandering to illumination. This spiritual ritual told the story of Demeter, the goddess of agriculture and the harvest, and the search for her daughter Persephone, who was taken away into the underworld by Hades. Distraught, Demeter wandered the earth, looking for her daughter everywhere, vowing to leave the earth barren until her daughter was returned. Eventually, Zeus forced Hades to let Persephone go, and she returned from the underworld in a triumphant return to life. In this myth, people often focus on the part where Persephone ate 6 pomegranate seeds in the underworld, so she had to spend 6 months on Earth and 6 months in the underworld. However, the Eleusinian Mysteries are much more than an agricultural story about the barrenness of winter and the rebirth of spring. It's about 2 entirely different ways of being, which we can call wandering and illumination. As I flip through the introduction, you may notice that I include images from many traditions from all over the world because countless traditions and countless cultures from throughout human history have pointed to the same difference between our ordinary state of being and one that is radically different. Some, for example, would show a halo around various figures, like this dancing Shiva image, or from ancient Egypt, they would show some figures crowned with this disc of the sun above their heads. So countless traditions point to the same thing in many different ways. One reason I felt so strongly about talking about this context of where we're at in the world today is because it's so obvious that we're not okay in the world. There's so many awful things happening all the time, not just things like mass shootings and strongmen taking over countries and all the conflict we see, all the ways that people don't see each other's common humanity and respect each other. There is just so much need for empathy, compassion, and understanding. And as an artist, I felt that I simply had no choice but to try to speak to what's missing in the world today and what we can do about it. So I'm going to flip ahead to the first part of the photographs, which is part 1, wandering. In this first part of the series, the photographs are of bare trees in winter. For me, the way that trees look in winter is extremely beautiful, not just because of the way that we can see all the branches and twigs and structure of the trees much more vividly than we can in summer. It's also a beautiful metaphor for how the trees aren't dead in winter, they're just in hibernation. And in the same way, in our daily lives, there are a lot of times when we aren't as fully awake as we could be. There are a lot of times when in our daily lives we might feel scattered or distracted or unfocused, or we might be in deeper levels of wandering where we feel extremely anxious or overwhelmed, might feel depressed, might feel a lot of anger, might feel the dark night of the soul in one way or another. And most unfortunately, some people are so deeply lost and wandering that they do awful things to themselves or others. And this is a real crisis we're in the world. Of course, most of us don't feel like we're wandering, as we may be focused on achieving things, making money and getting somewhere, taking care of all the things we need to in our daily lives between work, school, friends, family, all of our daily activities. But if we lose our connection with soul and with what's really important, then we're wandering. Meanwhile, if we look at the collective level, it's clear that our world in general is really lost and wandering. It's been more than 135 years since Nietzsche said, God is dead, and large parts of the population are still turned off from traditional religion, wandering without anything that gives them direction or a sense of meaning or connection with something larger than themselves. This concept of wandering applies basically to all of us in one way or another. The vast majority of the time, we aren't as fully awake as we could be. So, in the story of Demeter and Persephone, it's as if Persephone was taken away to the underworld and Demeter is wandering for so long that she forgets who she's even searching for and even forgets that she's missing anything. We're lost without knowing that we're lost. However, we don't have to be stuck wandering forever, as we're reminded by Persephone's rising from the underworld and the stories from many other traditions from all over the world, like Jesus, Osiris, the Buddha, Muhammad, and countless others. No matter what challenges we face, there are ways to shift out of whatever difficulties we're stuck in. There really is a different way of being that any of us can experience, that some might call illumination, satori, moksha, or awakening, which can completely transform us and greatly increase our creativity, our effectiveness in the world, our ability to face even the most enormous challenges that life can throw at us. And it can fundamentally restore our connection with our soul and with the sacred. In a crucial part of the Eleusinian Mysteries, the initiate would be shown a sacred object, a sheaf of grain harvested in silence, which represents our soul, or the deepest part of ourselves that some traditions would call the higher self, Buddha self, Christ consciousness, the luminous self, or many other names. After all, each of us has a divine spark, but it's usually kept hidden away in the underworld of our unconscious, and we normally don't have a way of noticing it unless we embark on some process of going deep within ourselves to understand the deepest parts of our being, whether it's using a practice like meditation or many other ways of working with the mind, or other ways of focusing deeply on the body, or focusing on our energy, and then practices like Reiki. There are countless ways to shift out of this state of wandering and to reconnect with the deepest parts of ourselves. As we go through this series of wandering photographs, you'll notice that they gradually shift out of the more dark and dense photographs into these more light and luminous ones as a representation of how our journey can progress from the deepest states of wandering back up to a level of more balance, groundedness, centeredness, and connection with our whole self. This photograph here reminds me of that part of the Eleusinian Mysteries where the initiate is shown that sheaf of grain harvested in silence. No matter how barren we might feel on the inside, no matter how much it might feel like we're stuck in winter, sooner or later, spring will come, and summer, and rebirth is always possible. Now we enter the second part of the series, Illumination. While the previous photographs were all of bare trees in winter, now the trees have come to life, representing the state of illumination, awakening, or reconnection with soul. Awakening isn't easy to describe because it's so different from our ordinary way of being, and everyone experiences it in their own way, but may commonly involve an explosion of our energy from the base of our spine to the crown of our head. It may involve seeing light when our eyes are closed, like swirls or patterns of light and color. It may involve feeling like we're suddenly rushing upward through a dark tunnel at a fantastic rate of speed and seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. Eventually, we may emerge into a vast, expansive place that feels more real than real and is pervaded throughout by a great bright light. We may feel indescribable amounts of love and wisdom. We may feel like a veil has been lifted and we're completely free. We may gain insight about our true nature, and at some point we may feel completely dissolved in the infinite. Sooner or later, we'll return from the experience, but how we perceive ourselves and the world will have changed completely. For me, it literally felt like an entire new dimension had unfolded, which is why this series feels so appropriate. Many people experience strong increases in various types of intelligence, like their emotional, interpersonal, kinesthetic, or other kinds of intelligence, as well as increases in our creativity, intuition, and resilience to deal with challenges. Besides, after an awakening experience, we no longer feel like we're lost and wandering. We know who we are, why we're here, and it's easier to focus on what's truly important. We can still choose whether to listen to our conscience, but it's more clear and obvious, like the moral clarity of people who have gone through immense challenges and know that they have the strength and determination to deal with anything whatsoever that we have to in life. I created the color photographs in the second half of the series after my awakening experience in 2014 to remind myself of that experience and to remind myself of what can't be said with words and to remind myself to connect with soul no matter what challenges we face. After all, just as Persephone had to spend 6 months of every year in the underworld and 6 months on Earth, we all may have to go back and forth between wandering and illumination over and over again. Awakening isn't just a simple one-time experience, as over and over again, life gives us opportunities to react as consciously as possible. The growth pangs of our world are certainly painful, and the old forces of chaos and conflict are trying desperately to hold on to power. But these challenges will only give us the resolve we need to awaken even faster, both individually and collectively, forging ourselves into unbreakable, radiant diamonds. As Frederick Douglass said, if there is no struggle, there is no progress. But sooner or later, we'll stop settling for wandering. We'll stop settling for the insane levels of fear, anger, sadness, jealousy, and greed that so many people think are normal. There is a time and a place for all emotions, but eventually we'll have learned the lessons we need to learn from struggle, and we can find a more peaceful way of being, one that can remain calm no matter what kind of storms might rage in the world around us. I have to emphasize that there are many, many different ways of being conscious and awakening in one way or another. We don't all necessarily have to have a big peak experience of the kind I've been describing. Some people just have gradual processes of becoming more and more conscious over years, decades, and their entire lifetime. So there's no one right or wrong way of being. There's no right or wrong way of going from wandering to illumination. All I'm trying to emphasize is that far more is possible than most of us realize. In the end, we may find that we already are what we've been searching for, and the secret to liberation is as simple as just being present to whatever arises, with each moment like a sheaf of grain that's picked in silence, both the harvest of everything that's come before and the seed of everything yet to come. As I flip through the last photograph in this series, I'm just struck by this everything that is beyond words. And that's what I'm trying to get across with these photographs, because there's so much about the journey of personal growth and consciousness that can't be captured in words alone, no matter how eloquently we try to talk about it, no matter how many analogies we try to use about what consciousness is. So that's why I created these photographs, to try to say what words can't. In closing, I just wanted to mention that the book does also include a postscript in which I talk about various tools for the journey, as we could call it. In other words, a set of practical steps that anyone can use to awaken in one way or another, to be more conscious than we usually are, and to be able to center ourselves, ground ourselves, connect deeply with all parts of ourselves. And, basically I'm trying to summarize the entire journey of personal growth or spirituality in a series of 11 steps that don't rely on any particular belief system or worldview. Too often people talk about how to become more conscious or make progress in our journey by appealing only to spiritual principles or particular religious belief systems. So what I try to do in this postscript is lay it all out for everyone from any belief system, how we can make more progress in the journey from wandering to illumination. I talk a lot more in the book about these topics and many more, but I hope this might at least pique your interest about the photographs and the book. So that's a brief introduction to the book. It's an invitation for us all to take the next step in our personal and collective evolution, for us to finally turn the page on this dark era of chaos and conflict, and to enter a new era of harmony. As a reminder, the book is for sale on Amazon, along with my 2 previous books, The Music of Trees and A Singing Wire. So please check them out, and if you buy one of my books, please leave a review to make it easier for others to find out about the work as well. See below for a link to From Wandering to Illumination on Amazon. And as always, if you have any thoughts or questions, please let me know. Peace, love, and blessings.